All right, hi everybody. I'm Anna Berman. I am an applied data scientist here at Civis Analytics on our political advocacy and nonprofit team. And today I'm here to talk to you about what analytics can do for your organization. So let's get started. So I think it's important that we start with the question, what is data analytics? I mean, chances are you've heard the term before, otherwise you wouldn't be here, but maybe you've heard it in the office, maybe you heard it in the news, maybe on a podcast. Maybe it's something you think that you should already know something about, but if you're confused, I'm not surprised. Data analytics encompasses a really wide variety of different concepts and methods, and it's easy to get lost in all the buzzwords and the technicalities. So today, I just want to briefly touch on some really common types of data analytics so that you can start thinking about what data analytics can do for your organization, and you can get comfortable with these ideas. So, with that said, what is data analytics? Broadly speaking, data analytics is the process of cleaning, organizing, transforming, and learning from data with the ultimate goal of discovering useful information and informing decisions. In other words, data analytics helps organizations make sense of their data. So I know that's a very broad definition, but the truth is that a strong data analytics program can accomplish a really broad range of goals. Some common goals of analytics programs are maybe increasing understanding of current supporters, maybe better targeting potential new supporters. A goal could be to grow donations or encourage additional actions from your supporters. And a really common goal is just getting more out of existing budgets. All of these goals can be addressed with a solid analytics program. And overall, what I really hope you can take away from all this is that your data is a huge asset to your organization. And taking full advantage of your data can mean huge improvements to your organization. I see so many nonprofits just sitting on this great underutilized asset simply because they don't know what's possible. So just starting to get a sense of what is possible is a huge step in the right direction towards a strong program. I also hope that you can take away that a strong program doesn't just happen overnight. There are many stepping stones in the process of building a data analytics infrastructure. But there are also real benefits to be had at each step of the way. So don't get discouraged. There's always progress to be made. So where do you start with all this? The first step to any data analytics program is data organization. Before you can really use your data, you first need to take stock of the data you already have and organize it into a coherent system. Data organization is the practice of categorizing and storing your data to make it more useful. I don't know about anybody else, but I compulsively watched The Home Edit on Netflix this past year. And if you haven't seen the show, it's essentially following a team of professional organizers, and it highlights how an organizational system can completely transform a space. Just like having a disorganized closet can mean constantly messy floors and 10 shirts that you've forgotten about hidden in the back, similarly, disorganized data can mean constant stress and just tons of information that can never be fully utilized to its full potential. And just like you can declutter and color code your wardrobe, you can also deduplicate and standardize your data. So data organization can mean a lot of different things. For one, it can mean consolidation of multiple data tables. And this is important because you don't want something to get updated in one place and then have to go making all those changes in the related places. You want one simple, single source of truth. You also can go about this by removing duplicate records. Again, you don't want to be double counting or triple counting anybody in your records. This can also take the form of standardization of data formats so that you can make comparisons across tables and across time seamlessly. And importantly, this also means documentation. Documentation is an overlooked step of data organization, but it is crucial for setting and then maintaining that sustainable data standards. So An example of the power of organization can be seen in a project that Civis did with the League of Conservation Voters, or LCV. LCV is a US environmental advocacy group, and they were facing a really common challenge. They started storing their data across multiple different systems and platforms, and because of this, they ended up with no centralized location for their data. This is maybe a situation that some of you are familiar with. It's an issue that starts small, but can get out of hand really quickly. And it leads to unclear data structures, redundant information, data processes and workflows that are repetitive. All of this can get really overwhelming. So the solution here was to organize their existing data and processes into one centralized location, in this case, Civis platform. And at the end, we wanted to eliminate any unnecessary data and workflows. So essentially here, we're doing a big declutter and organization of their data. We're consolidating data tables with redundant information. We were migrating data into more logical structures. We were streamlining data pipelines and standardizing data formats. And at the end of all of this, we were removing any redundant data or workflows left over. So it was a lot of work, but at the end of the day, the benefits of this were huge. First of all, we had standardized addresses and fewer duplicates in their data, which ultimately led to cutting down on wasted expenses from contacting people over and over again. It also meant more efficient data processes. So for example, some workflows that were previously taking 10 plus hours were now only taking 2 to 3 hours, so some serious time savings. We also had more stable and flexible systems that ended up saving time and resources whenever new data and changes were occurring. So a lot of reduced time, no longer debugging things. And we also saw just an increased understanding of the data that already exists and an understanding of how the workflows operate across the organization. So this is just reducing confusion and overall increasing efficiency for anybody using the system. So this here is just one example of a successful data organization process. And again, data organization is really the foundation of a data analytics program, and there are huge benefits to be had at just this first step. But once you have that foundation, the rest of the data analytics world is really open to you. So in my experience, the area of data analytics that typically follows good data organization is data reporting. So data reporting is the process of collecting and formatting raw data and translating that into a digestible format. So in other words, data reporting takes your raw data and turns it into something easy for others to understand. And that's for anybody at your organization, not just for analysts. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with reports. Reporting can take many different forms. Oftentimes reports have maybe engaging visuals that make understanding the data easy and simple for everyone to understand. Some reports may have key metrics that inform strategy and inform decisions. And other types of reports are maybe interactive and dynamic, and they can track trends and performance over time. So this would be something that a user could interact with, something like maybe Tableau or Power BI, if you've ever used those programs before. But importantly, what makes reporting really powerful is when it's automated and accessible across your organization. So an example of the impact of good reporting is a project, again, that Civis did with, in this case, an international environmental organization. So in this case, this international environmental organization was facing a challenge of having a non-standardized data across many different systems. And this, at the end of the day, was leading to manual and time-intensive reporting. So the solution here was to unify these disparate sources of data into one centralized location, then transform that data to create reporting metrics that ultimately piped into these standardized reports. So you can see here that the first step of this process is actually really similar to the last project we talked about, because it's really all about organizing their data. Again, that's because organization is truly the building block to any further analytics. But what this international environmental organization needed was to take it that one step further and funnel that good data into a workflow that automatically calculated key metrics and then placed that into easy to access reports. So specifically here, that meant bringing each office's raw fundraising, petition, and email data into one centralized hub. In this case, again, Civis platform. We then wanted to create standard reporting metrics that were piped into standardized, again, fundraising, petition, and email reports. And importantly, these reports were automatically updated and housed in that same centralized hub. So the benefits of this were that at the end of the day, this organization had standardized reports that could be accessed and shared across the offices nationwide and worldwide, and some serious time savings from increased efficiency in metric calculation and reporting. So again, reporting is really common data analytics practice that I'm sure that many of you are familiar with. And reporting can help you understand and track performance and progress across your organization. But specifically, having an automated reporting process can mean major time savings and increased clarity across the organization. Okay, so that's reporting. We've talked about organization, we've talked about data reporting. Everything we've talked about so far uses your historical data. But let's say, what if you want to know about situations that haven't already happened, situations that you don't have records for? That's where predictive modeling comes in. So predictive modeling, also known as predictive analytics, is a statistical process that attempts to predict future outcomes by analyzing patterns in historical data. So in other words, you're using the information you currently have to make educated predictions about new situations. There are many ways to use predictive modeling, but commonly it can be used in acquisition. For example, maybe using characteristics about your current donors to identify new donor targets. And predictive modeling can also be used to predict other actions, such as supporting an issue, maybe becoming a monthly sustaining member, or maybe voting. Any of these outcomes can be predicted using predictive modeling. Overall, developing predictive models on your data allows organizations to make informed decisions about future outcomes. Okay, so here's an example of a predictive modeling project. Again, a project that we at Civis worked with, this time coming from Lyric Opera in Chicago. Lyric Opera of Chicago is one of the leading opera companies in the United States, and they were facing a challenge of wanting to increase their ticket purchases. However, at the time, the organization had a pretty limited knowledge of their current audience base. So at a high level, the solution here was to use predictive modeling to identify prospective ticket buyers that looked similar to their current ticket buyers. But first, given that there was such limited knowledge about Lyric's current audience, the first step of this solution was actually to augment their list of current ticket buyers with Civis's database of over 220 plus million Americans. By adding this data, Lyric now had much more information about their current audience to work with. And having this additional information uncovered a clear picture of Lyric's typical audience member. Importantly, though, this additional information also shed light on individuals who are not current audience members. And that's important because it allowed them to discern what is unique about Lyric ticket buyers compared to the general public. So once we had this additional information, we were able to develop a predictive model on the data. This model was able to determine the best predictors of being a ticket buyer. In other words, this model told us what individual characteristics were good indicators of being a Lyric audience member. Even better, we were then able to use that predictive model to find new prospective ticket buyers. So we were able to say, okay, we know the characteristics that are good indicators of being a current Lyric ticket buyer. Who else has those characteristics? They're probably also going to be good targets for Lyric. So using this model, Lyric was able to identify the best prospective buyers. So again, at the end of all of this, Lyric had a clear picture of who a typical ticket buyer is, and came away with the knowledge of the best predictors of purchasing tickets. This was so successful that the prospects identified using the predictive model ended up purchasing tickets at 3.7 times the rate of other prospects sourced through more traditional methods, meaning that this model was really stellar at identifying solid prospective buyers for Lyric. So this is just a great example of how predictive modeling can help make decisions based on the information at hand and ultimately improve outcomes over and above that of traditional methods. So again, we're getting more out of the same efforts here. We get the same campaign, but we're getting more ticket purchases at the end of the day. Okay, so that was super fast, really high-level summary of some really common methods of data analytics. We talked about organization, reporting, and predictive modeling. And as you can tell from going through all of these examples, data analytics actually includes a really wide variety of concepts and definitely comes with a wide variety of benefits. Just to really drive this home, some common benefits that we've seen include having a single source of truth that everybody at the organization can trust, having a deep understanding of who you're engaging with, and an understanding of how you can engage more effectively with your members and donors. And more generally, a good analytics program means that you can do more with the same, or in some cases, far less input, which means just overall increased efficiency. Perhaps even more importantly, a strong data analytics program can mean the confidence that you're making the right decisions every day and that you're not just making this based on a gut feeling. So we at Civis, we work with NRDC, and this is a quote from the Senior Director of Data and Digital Technology. And she said that what she loves most about her data analytics program is our ability to aggregate all of our data from our many disparate people in the organization who engage with it at the NRDC. For the first time, we know how many supporters we have, what channels they came in through, are they engaging with us by email or direct mail? All of that is incredible. So in other words, having the right data in the right place, in the right format, can mean the world when answering these critical questions. Okay, so you might be thinking, that's all fine and good, but it seems like a lot, and I'm not really sure where to get started. Well, like I hinted at before, the first place to look is really at your data. Put simply, without data, there really isn't much that analytics can do. It's always important to keep in mind that a clean data set combined with even the simplest analytic methods is more likely to yield great results than compared to a messy data set with even the most advanced methods. In other words, garbage in, garbage out. Having data and having useful data are dramatically different things. So what's considered useful data? There are many factors, but useful data is accessible, it's clean, it's regularly updated, and it's connected across multiple different systems. So an example of this might be that you have a data set that's updated on a daily cadence with a unique identifier for each individual in the data set, and that you can easily combine donation data with engagement data. That would be useful data and a really great data to get started with. Beyond just data, you're also going to need a culture that prioritizes truth and scientific rigor over reaction, instinct, and anecdotal evidence. Honestly, without this kind of culture, any data-driven initiative is going to be an uphill battle. The data-driven culture builds on a shared understanding of the right questions to ask, the information needed to make the right decisions, and how to measure success. The best data-driven cultures have organizational-wide buy-in for using data to make decisions and have discussions about data across the organization. Having this culture is definitely easier said than done and can be a real challenge to manufacture, but having this kind of culture can really make building a strong data analytics program so much easier. And finally, you're going to need the right people and the right tools to do the job effectively. This means having dedicated analysts or data scientists whose job it is to create and maintain solutions that are going to inform the work of the rest of the organization. So these are kind of boots on the ground data scientists, and they're crucial for making better, faster, and smarter decisions for your organization. This also means having the right tools in place to make analytics happen. So this can mean having a self-serving computing infrastructure. It could also mean a well-defined practices and common set of input documentation. And it could also mean a platform for the team to create transparent and automated workflows across. Without the right people and tools, any progress is going to be slow and definitely hard to sustain. Okay, so I know that was a lot to take in and the day is just getting started, but I hope that can set the stage for all the amazing presentations that are going to be happening throughout the next 2 days. I'd love to take these last maybe 5-10 minutes and answer some questions.
Anna, thank you so much for that presentation. I think it's really foundational to the rest of the day. And I love how you walked through in very clear and simple terms and of how to lay the groundwork for not only obtaining good data, but using data within an organization. One of the things that you mentioned as we are waiting for other questions to come in, one of the things that you mentioned is clean data. And I'm curious how you would define clean data. And I think coupled with that, you also talked about having a unique identifier within data. Can you give an example of that?
Sure, yeah. So let's say you have potentially a data set of your members, your people that donate to you on a monthly basis. You want to make sure that every one of those people have a unique identifier in the system so that you can always come back to that same data set and always identify that same person. So that would be really useful if you had, let's say, another data set that's just a table of all the donations that have ever been made. That might also include, whoever donated their unique identifier in the data set. And that way, when you join those two tables, you make sure that you're always connecting those donations to the same individuals. So that would be an example of the use of a unique identifier in a clean data set. There are many other ways to create a clean data set. We talked about deduplicating. We talked about making a standardized formats for your data so that everything you can compare across records. But that's certainly the beginning.
And then one question has come in. What kind of data does Civis use to augment another org's data?
Yeah, so we have this huge data set of, I think I said 220 plus million Americans. And it's a really large data set with tons of, demographic information, maybe information about, the household level information, information about, their income, maybe, their voting history, those types of things. We have a lot of information that we can then join with other organizations' information and, again, augment an organization's data to include this additional information from our data set. So that really gives us a lot more power when we're talking about something like predictive modeling.
And that's really helpful, too, to help an org make a decision, because it's one thing to know that there's a supporter in Iowa that's 25, but if you have that augmented information, it's much cleaner to make a decision that will be spot on. So thank you for that. I think realizing that we are coming to the end of time, one question has come in that I think is really important as folks are thinking about implementing data within their org, and it's around culture and how to create a really successful culture around data, especially if there is either a one-person sort of data resource or a very small team that focuses on data. Can you repeat what you've said about culture and maybe go a click deeper so folks can really think about how to make a data culture stick within their org?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, this is a really hard question. It's really hard to manufacture a data-driven culture if it's not already in existence. Let's see, let's go back to this culture slide. A data-driven culture has an understanding of the right questions to ask, the information needed to make the decisions, and I think most importantly, how to be measuring this success. I think from my personal experience, the way to kind of evangelize data in an organization, if you're in a small group, is to really show the benefits of how data can be used within that organization. I know that it can often be the case that resources are tight and, other people are doing all this other work and there's really not the time of day for data. But I think really showing how data can be used to help the organization work better, to maybe help better serve its constituents, all of those things can really help bolster the confidence in the rest of the organization in their own data.
Thank you, Anna. I think that will be a foundational piece in terms of not only getting the data set, but making sure that the data and the culture around that is, as you say, evangelized throughout the org so that it becomes something that is constantly used and augmented to the benefit of the org. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your time. We will close this session now and take a break before we hop into data buzzwords. So thank you, Anna.
Of course. Thank you so much.